Hey everyone, welcome to a philosophical journey that's going to blow your mind. Today we're diving into something you've probably heard of, but may not fully grasp: Nietzsche's critique of the real self. This is going to get deep, but trust me, by the end, you'll see the world and yourself differently. So let's start with a question: what does it even mean to be your real self? Is it just about following your instincts, doing what feels right, or something more complex? Nietzsche challenges us to look beyond these simple ideas. He saw the concept of the real self not as a ready-made thing, but as something we create, something we have to fight for every day. And let me tell you, this fight isn't easy.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
From the get-go, Nietzsche was skeptical of any notion of a fixed, eternal, or pure self. Think about it: we're constantly told by society, by friends, by the media, who we should be. We're bombarded with ideas about success, happiness, and morality. But Nietzsche's key insight is that most of these ideas aren't ours at all. They're handed down by society, shaped by history, and enforced by culture. Here's a wild thought: what if everything you think is you is actually just a reflection of what society wants you to be? Now, Nietzsche wasn't against society per se, but he believed that if you let society define your identity, you'd never find your real self. You'd be stuck living what he called herd mentality, where you just go with the flow, never questioning, never pushing back. And here comes the kicker: Nietzsche argues that this herd mentality is dangerous because it stifles your potential. It stops you from becoming who you could be. So what's the alternative? For Nietzsche, it's about self-overcoming. This means actively rejecting the easy path of conformity and comfort. It's about forging your own values, your own meaning, and yes, your own identity. But this isn't some feel-good, follow your heart kind of message. Nietzsche is clear this process is hard. It's painful, it's lonely. But it's also necessary if you're going to live authentically. This brings us to one of Nietzsche's most famous concepts: the will to power. Now, don't get it twisted. The will to power isn't about dominating others or being the strongest person in the room. It's about mastering yourself. It's about the inner drive to shape your own life, to create your own path, and to continuously push yourself beyond your limits. Here's a question for you: when was the last time you really pushed yourself, not for someone else, but for you? The will to power is all about that push. It's about taking control of your existence, not letting external forces dictate who you are. And this is where Nietzsche's critique of the real self gets really interesting. He's not saying that there's a true version of you just waiting to be discovered. No. He's saying you have to create it. And that creation isn't a one-time thing. It's ongoing. It's a process that never stops. Every day you're faced with choices, small ones, big ones, and each of those choices either brings you closer to your real self or further away from it. Nietzsche believed that the people who achieve greatness aren't the ones who are somehow born different. They're the ones who constantly engage in this process of self-overcoming, who never stop pushing, questioning, and creating. But here's the tough part: Nietzsche also warns that this journey is filled with existential challenges. You have to confront the fact that life is chaotic, that there's no predetermined purpose or meaning. And that's terrifying for most people. But Nietzsche would say, good. Embrace that terror. It's only by facing the chaos, by accepting that life has no inherent meaning, that you can start to create your own. So here's another deep question: Are you willing to face the chaos of life? Or are you still clinging to the comfort of societal definitions? All right, we've laid some serious groundwork here. We've talked about the herd mentality, the will to power, and the constant process of self-creation. But we're just scratching the surface. Let's dig deeper into Nietzsche's critique of the real self by exploring how he challenges the very idea of authenticity itself. So, we've already talked about Nietzsche's rejection of herd mentality and his concept of self-overcoming. But here's where Nietzsche really flips the table. What if the entire concept of authenticity itself is an illusion? What if the real self we're chasing doesn't even exist in the way we think it does? To Nietzsche, the way most people frame authenticity is through a lens of truth, as if there's a true version of ourselves out there, buried under layers of social conditioning, just waiting to be uncovered. But Nietzsche had a massive problem with the idea of objective truth. He believed that all knowledge, all truths are perspective-based. They're not neutral or objective, they're shaped by context, by power dynamics, and by individual perception. Here's a question that will mess with your mind. If everything you know is shaped by perspective, is there even such a thing as a real self? Nietzsche would argue that the self isn't a static thing, it's fluid, always in flux, always changing. The moment you think you found your real self, it's already changed. And here's the kicker: the very act of trying to find yourself might be the thing that prevents you from actually becoming yourself. Let that sink in for a second. Nietzsche is suggesting that the whole modern obsession with discovering who we are is misguided. Instead of finding ourselves, we should be constantly creating ourselves. It's not about peeling back the layers to reveal some core, unchanging essence. It's about shaping those layers, adding to them, discarding them when necessary, and building something new every day. This leads us to another one of Nietzsche's revolutionary ideas: eternal recurrence. Imagine this: what if, after you die, you're forced to live your entire life over again exactly the same way, with every decision, every mistake, every joy, and every regret repeating for all eternity? Would you be happy with that? That's the challenge Nietzsche presents with eternal recurrence. Would you live your life differently if you knew you had to live it over and over again forever? The idea isn't meant to be taken literally. It's a thought experiment designed to force you to confront your choices. Are you living authentically? Are you living in a way that you'd be proud to repeat for all eternity? Because if you're not, Nietzsche would argue that you're not truly engaged in the process of self-creation. You're still stuck in the illusion of a stable, discoverable self. But let's not stop there. Nietzsche also questioned the very morality that underpins our ideas of the self. What we consider good or bad is often just a reflection of what society deems acceptable. But Nietzsche didn't believe in universal moral truths. He saw morality as a construct, one that's used to control people and keep them in line with the herd. So here's another deep thought: if morality is just a construct, what does that mean for the authentic self? If there's no objective good or bad, how do you decide what kind of person you want to be? Nietzsche's answer is radical: you decide. You create your own values. You choose what's meaningful to you. And this is where his famous declaration, "God is dead," comes into play. Nietzsche wasn't celebrating the death of God. He was pointing out that the old foundations of morality, religion, tradition, authority were crumbling in the modern world. And with that collapse comes immense freedom, but also a terrifying responsibility. Without a preordained set of values, we're left to create our own. And that's where the struggle for the real self becomes so intense. It's not about discovering who you are within a fixed moral framework. It's about creating your own values from scratch, without any guarantees, without any safety net. Here's a challenge for you. What values are you living by right now? And are they really yours? Or are they ones you've inherited from society, from religion, from your upbringing? This is why Nietzsche's version of authenticity is so different from the popular, feel-good notion. It's not about being true to yourself as you are. It's about constantly becoming who you want to be, and that process never ends. It's not comfortable. It's not easy. It's not about finding peace or happiness. It's about embracing the struggle, embracing the chaos of existence, and using that chaos to shape your identity. And here's where Nietzsche gets personal. Embracing this struggle means accepting that life is full of contradictions. You'll never have a unified, coherent self. You'll always have conflicting desires, values, and perspectives within you. And that's okay. In fact, that's necessary. Nietzsche believed that it's through these internal conflicts that we grow, that we evolve. So let me ask you, are you willing to embrace your own contradictions? Or are you still searching for a neat, tidy version of yourself that doesn't exist? So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final question. Are you ready to stop searching for yourself and start creating yourself? Because in the end, that's what Nietzsche's critique of the real self is all about. It's about freedom, yes, but it's also about responsibility. It's about embracing the full weight of your existence and using it to shape your own path. And that, Nietzsche would argue, is the only way to live authentically. It's the only way to truly become who you are. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive into Nietzsche's critique of the real self. I hope this has sparked something in you, maybe a new way of thinking about yourself, about life, about the choices you make every day. Remember, the journey toward becoming your real self is never finished. It's ongoing. And the only way to keep moving forward is to keep questioning, keep creating, and keep saying yes to life.